Amanda from Pontes Books, taking a look at chapter 4 from The Prince and the Pauper. So for our vocabulary focus for today, we're looking at a word that comes up quite a bit in The Prince and the Pauper, and that word is mad. So the picture here being a mad scientist, and we'll talk about, I guess, that phrase being one of the ones connected to the word mad in a little bit. But essentially, the word mad has multiple different meanings, and most people are familiar with both of them, but it's just delving into the history of the word a little bit too. So the definition that we are looking at is mentally ill or insane. So in the United States, more often we use the word crazy, and in the UK, where this book was set, you would more often use the word mad or talk about madness. So talking about this word mad or crazy or insane, oftentimes they're not considered politically correct if you're talking about somebody who actually has a mental illness. And specifically when we look at the word insane, which is not technically the word we're looking at, but that's, a synonym. What we mean when we talk about mad, we mean insane. And that's primarily a legal term that they use, that you can use as a legal defense, is you can claim insanity. But both the terms mad and crazy are more often used casually. So, if somebody says something and you're like, are you crazy? Are you mad? Are you insane? So again, when we're referring to people who actually have mental illnesses, mental disorders, we don't often use these actual terms. They're more used just casually. But in The Prince and the Pauper, they are accusing who they think is Edward of being mad, and then likewise who they think is Tom. So I think the first time it comes up in The Prince and the Pauper is actually when Edward, who they think is Tom Canty, is being called this by John Canty. So some examples, and again, this is tricky because we don't really use these words, but when you're talking about like an insanity defense, when we're talking about that, like people who actually are characterized as being insane or mad in the eyes of the law, again, not necessarily medically, more often are people who fall into these medical categories. So psychotic disorders, mood disorders, and then having temporary insanity. So when you're talking about somebody who's committed a crime, those are the things that more often fall under that insanity defense for not being aware of what was happening when the crime was committed. Some non-examples, so kind of the opposite, that would be somebody who is sane or competent. Again, looking at that insanity defense, this would be the opposite. If you were competent, that means you know what's going on and you know the crime that was being committed. Also a non-example, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is not actually the definition of insanity, though that is a common phrase that people use, but that's not actually what the definition is at all. So that's actually a non-example of being mad or insane. So again, I'm using a lot of these words interchangeably, just because, again, I live in the US and we don't typically use the word mad this way. It more often means angry, but that's what we're talking about. Looking at the etymology, you can see it comes from, a lot of different places, as many words do, but Old English, not even sure how to pronounce that whatsoever, but means out of one's mind, and usually also implies violent excitement. So yeah, you can kind of see the word mad there in the middle of the word. So looking at some sentences where we see this word. So the straightforward sentence, they say he went mad when his lover chose someone else over him. There's 2 periods in there, you only need 1. But so pretty straightforward. He went crazy, he went insane, he went mad, and that could be literal or figurative, just depending on what the situation is. So then the sentence from the actual chapter, gone stark mad as any Tom of Bedlam, then collared him once more and said with a coarse laugh and an oath, but mad or no mad, I and thy gamer Canty will soon find where the soft places in thy bones lie, or I'm no true man. So that is John Canty who is saying that line. And it's when he discovers Edward, who he thinks is actually Tom, wandering on the streets near Awful Court. And when he claims that he's actually the prince, this is kind of John Canty's reaction. Other forms of the word: madness is the noun form. Madly would be an adverb. There's a lot of other words that involve mad, but those are more often like anger. Like to madden someone is to make them angry, not necessarily like to make them crazy. So there's other forms of the word mad, but when we're talking specifically about the one that means insane, crazy, that is kind of, those are the options that we more often see. But wait, there's more. So the word mad comes up a lot. Like I said, even in the US, where we don't necessarily use it as often as they might, like in the UK or in other countries, there's a lot of idioms that use the word mad. So mad hatter or mad as a hatter, barking mad, to be stark raving mad or to go stark raving mad, to drive someone mad, to do something like mad. So like you're on a bike and you're pedaling like mad. A mad scientist, again, coming back to the picture that I chose for this word, and then to be mad about something. Now, in this case, this doesn't mean you're angry about something. This means like you're like obsessed with it. You're crazy about it. So like, I'm mad about, I don't know, baking. I really like baking. And then there's also idioms that imply the word mad. So when you're referring to somebody who you think is, you know, a little crazy. And again, these aren't technical terms and can be considered not very politically correct oftentimes, depending on the situation. But these are phrases, and there are more than just these two. But to say that somebody went bananas, or that they're a basket case, that they have bats in the belfry, I think it's belfry, out of your mind, lose one's marbles, not all there, mad about something, have a screw loose. There's other words or phrases like that as well. So this word mad comes up all the time. And again, most people pick up pretty early on in the story that they're not talking about the two boys being angry, that they're talking about they're being accused of being crazy. But just to give a little more history of the word, hopefully you learned something today. Have a good day.